Welcome on Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. The Atlanta Hawks have now won 2 in a row after beating the Denver Nuggets in Denver 110-87. This is the first time the Atlanta Hawks have beat Denver since 2019. So it's been a few years since the Hawks have found success in the Mile High City, but today they went soaring up there. And so we're going to recap that game today. What happened? Dyson Daniels getting his first triple-double of the game. Talk about his performance. And Jalen Johnson, the first game of the Jalen Johnson era and the first game post Trae Young era here for Atlanta. So like I said, we'll get into all that. Then also, I'm going to talk about the latest on Anthony Davis. He suffers another major injury, which probably takes him off the Hawks' radar. But we have to wait until that gets confirmed. And then maybe who could be a good replacement for the Hawks if they want to pursue someone else. And then we'll talk about the incoming, new players, CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, what I think about their fit in Atlanta and how I think they actually may be pretty good for the team once they get into a Hawks uniform. So we're going to talk about all that today on Believe in the Hawks. I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment down below. Leave a comment about anything we discuss. Obviously, I know it's been a lot of episodes been up this week. A lot has happened in the world of the Atlanta Hawks. And, like I say, guys, I always try to be on top of these things for y'all. So I appreciate you guys rocking with me. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter at Bricey_2K. If you want to tweet at me there, talk to me, message me about things, you can do it over on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So let's go ahead and dive right into the game. So, like I said, the Hawks tonight are now starting the first of their 4-game road trip on the West Coast. So they'll go back to another West Coast road trip. If you remember earlier this year, the Hawks actually went undefeated on their first West Coast road trip. So this is the second one of the season. This one, you started off against Denver. You get a good win at 110-87, right? Next 3 games that you play after this, the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Trailblazers. So you got some tough games coming up, but you may have some reinforcements on the way, which I'll get to, like I said, later. But essentially, the Hawks tonight, again, played one of their best defensive games of the season. And even without Jamal Murray and Joker, I mean, if you've watched this team, you know the struggles they've had defensively, regardless of who's on the floor for the other team. And for them to kind of come out second straight game in a row and play some good defense was a really good sight to see. And this kind of is a part of what they are hoping to get consistently moving forward with this new regime, this new era that we're in now, post Trae Young. And so I believe 4 of the last 6 games, the Hawks have actually won when they've kept their opponents to below 104. So I believe in the 2 wins they had prior to the Raptors games, those were lower scoring games. They won both of those. And in the last 2, Pelicans and against Denver, they've also won, keeping them below 104, where Denver didn't even crack 90 tonight. So, that really means you had a really strong, especially today's NBA, that was a really strong defensive performance when you can hold someone below 90 points. So really good stuff there from those guys. And really this game was a story of turnovers and creating turnovers and not turning the ball over. Hawks only had 6 turnovers in this game. That's been a big issue for the Hawks in some of these games, is their lack of ball security. That's created extra possessions for the extra team. And for a team that isn't great on the boards, and sometimes teams get extra possessions out of offensive rebounds, the fact the Hawks were able to cut down another way another team could get more possessions through turnovers and easier buckets, only having 6 tonight, that really kept Denver from getting out in the fast break and trying to take advantage of the Hawks' poor transition defense at times. And so they did a really good job of just making sure they didn't turn the ball over and then also creating turnovers. They forced Denver into 19 turnovers tonight. Denver, especially, I think 10 in the first half or 11 in the first half. So they did a really good job of kind of doing things that they needed to do to win this game, creating turnovers and not turning the ball over, which obviously led to some easy buckets for them and honestly just helped them stay in a rhythm in this game. So, I mean, and that was pretty much the story of the game. I mean, first half, Hawks pretty much played a really solid game. First quarter was really close. Denver hanging in there, competing. Second quarter, Hawks were able to kind of get a little bit of separation, not a lot, but, they were leading at half. You felt pretty good. Okay, looks like Hawks are playing good basketball. Third quarter comes, they have, it just feels like, this team has those stretches, especially, especially just without Trae, where they just can't score. They had a porous third quarter. They only scored a total of 16 points in the third quarter. So that's not good. Offensively, really struggled. But they turned it on in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, they beat Denver 36-12. So they completely shut down Denver's offense and lit it up offensively. Flipped the switch. And that's something that you definitely want to see from this team, especially, again, you're going against a shorthanded Denver team who doesn't have Jamal Murray, who doesn't have Joker. They have a couple other guys who are out. And, when you play teams like this, when you also had injuries. You didn't have Kristaps Porzingis. You didn't have Zachary Shai. And so, you didn't know teams, when they're going down to their other guys, how that's going to look. But Hawks took care of business tonight, and their best players who were on the floor still came out and produced, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Johnson. And like I said, Dyson Daniels had a triple-double. So really, overall, they took care of business tonight. They did the thing. I said this was also going to be a good game, I thought, for them because, we know how much of a low Joker is. I mean, he is just a guy who can tear up any defense in the league through his passing, his scoring, his rebounding, and he's a tough matchup for the Hawks, especially with some of the size issues, especially without Kristaps Porzingis. But when he was out, Valanciunas is out, it was kind of like, okay, this is a good game for the front court to kind of, be able to take advantage of the size of Denver. They really don't have any interior presence that you're worried about. Aaron Gordon is more of a cutter / jump shooter. So he's not really someone you're also worrying about dominating the Hawks in the paint. And I think the Hawks were able to take advantage of that. Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu combined tonight for 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists. So that front court starting duo had a really strong game today. And, I mean, they took advantage of the matchup that was given to them when Denver was down a couple of guys. So, like I said, really good stuff there. So let's get into some of the player performances before I get into other topics in the show. So, like I said, Dyson Daniels, first career triple-double. First one, it's funny because it happens the first game when Trae leaves. But first career triple-double, 17, 11, and 10. And listen, Dyson, I know a lot of people feel like Dyson's had a disappointing season so far this year. He hasn't been as good as you thought he would be, especially offensively. I think you were looking for that step offensively, and it felt like it may have regressed a little bit in that department. But now that he's kind of the point guard while Trae is gone, well, since Trae is gone now, he's always kind of been good at the assist to turnover ratio. He's a low turnover guy, but he doesn't really take a lot of risks. But at the same time, you'll sometimes look up and you'll see he has 8, 9, 10, 11 assists in the game. And he just runs the offense, I think, the way Quinn wants the offense ran. And, he gets guys involved. And really, it's because even though he can't shoot, Dyson still attacks. He still gets into the paint. And it still can make a defense collapse. And so then that's where Dyson's like, I'm driving, but I am looking for a pass. So that's where you can find a shooter, a guy who's cutting, things of that, and put yourself in a better position to make plays. And so I think that's why Dyson's value on this team is more than just his scoring, even though tonight he had 17 points. So he gave them some good offense. But I think, like I said, he'll be the primary point guard now for the rest of the year, unless something changes. And I don't know if this will be the long-term outlook for Dyson here as a point guard. I don't think so, but we'll see. But I think it gives them more comfortability just knowing he can do it, and he can do it at a high level. And so, like I said, him getting a triple-double tonight was really good, really, really happy for him, and just looking for him to kind of keep it up. I mean, next game's going to be a little bit different for him. He's going to be guarding Steph Curry, so his responsibilities may be different. Going against a guy like that, but we'll have to see. Like I said, Onyeka Okongwu, 15 points tonight, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Onyeka really hit a big 3 at the end of the third quarter when the Hawks were having that bad quarter. And I think that really kind of changed the tide of the game. I feel like it was almost like sometimes you always hear, we can just make a shot. Just give us something positive going into that last quarter. And when he made that 3, it really, I think, sparked the Hawks again. And listen, he was a part of a report that I saw about Hawks don't see Mo Gay and him as the long-term center, which is confusing to me because I don't think the Hawks have ever – I personally don't think the Hawks want Onyeka to be their long-term center. But I do think they want him on the roster as a backup center, backup four, maybe starting four, depending on the situation. Jalen here, probably never the starting four, but at least a guy who was a very valuable bench member. And, I know that, he's not the greatest rim protector, and against bigger matchups, he can struggle. But like I said, his shooting is valuable to Quinn because of how he wants the team to run it. Because I think what you're about to see now is, like I said, what we kind of saw when they were winning games earlier this year is what he wants his team to look like with the shooting and the passing and the guys who can cut and things of that nature. And he said it last game. He said Yeka's honestly one of our best offensive playmakers. So I think you can see how much Quinn values him and just the things that he wants to do, like in terms of trying to run his offense and what he wants to see from his team offensively. And like I said, this was a good matchup for him, not having to go against a Valanciunas or a Joker tonight. So he was able to kind of take advantage of some things, and he had a good game. He had the highest plus-minus of all starters. Onyeka Okongwu was plus 32 tonight. So Onyeka Okongwu, really, really strong game for him. Jalen Johnson tonight, really impressive shot making. 29 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Jalen, listen. Like I said, right now, they've turned the reins over to Jalen Johnson. I talked this in my last video. I said Jalen Johnson's now kind of the guy. He's now kind of the person who will lead the Hawks into this new era, and we'll see who they pair up with Jalen. But, tonight he just looked smooth. He looked comfortable. He looked under control. And like I said, last year, even when he was having a good year last year, he wasn't doing and playing the way he's playing this year. And I think that's why Jalen has taken that step as a player. 29 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 12 of 18 from the field, 5 of 6 from 3. Hot from 3, really efficient from the field. And if you're getting that on a game-to-game basis from Jalen Johnson, I would think if you're a Hawks fan, you're ecstatic about that. You're ecstatic about that type of performance from a guy like him. And so, like I said, Jalen, really good stuff from him. Really liked what I saw. And like I said, he's the number one option now. He will be at the top of everybody's scouting reports from this on out. And this is how you can prove, if you're Jalen Johnson, that you are truly entering that next tier of player. Because now people are going to be like, how do we stop Jalen Johnson? And listen, Jalen is still growing. He's going to have to learn, okay, there's going to be games where you're like, they take this away from me. How can I counter that? It's all about questions and answers. Do you have answers to the question? Jalen Johnson, this is your chance to continue to show not just the Hawks fan base, but the NBA that you are here to stay and you are that guy. Because the Hawks are putting a lot of confidence in you, kind of passing the mantle to you from Trae Young. Alexander Walker, 22 points tonight, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. A little bit of an inefficient game, 9 of 21 from the field, 3 of 11 from 3. But still, listen, Nikhil, green light guy, confident, not afraid to shoot the ball. He's a guy who, I think he's a very big part. The fact that he's broke out this year and became this player that people did not think he would become and I think he will continue to be a very major part of this team moving forward. It'll be interesting to kind of see just a long-term aspect with him in this team. Because, I could easily, like I said, it really just depends on what the Hawks do this offseason. If they were able to get a guy like Darren Peterson, you would assume Nikhil will go back to the bench. We don't know, because I know if he isn't, y'all are going to be like, why is Darren Peterson not starting? But that's another conversation for like months down the line. And that's if that happens. But Nikhil Alexander-Walker, man, he's been a big glue guy. He stepped up as a leader, I think, here, which has also been something a lot of people don't talk about. He's become a leader in that locker room for this team. And, him and Jalen are kind of the number 1, number 2 options on the Hawks right now. So they're kind of leading the charge and trying to help this team, get back on track and try to win some games and get back into playoff positioning and maybe crack into the top 8. So Vic Krejci did not have a good game tonight. And honestly, he was kind of due for this. I think, Vic Krejci's been shooting so well this year that I think, you think every game he's just going to light you up. And there's just some games you're off. And he was off tonight. 0 of 8 from the field, 0 of 7 from 3. Just was not a great offensive game for him. But it's okay. The Hawks clearly didn't need him to give him a game like this tonight. This is like if Krejci was going to have a game like this was the game to do it. So obviously you hope, okay, he didn't do great. Maybe he uses this. All right, I want to bounce back next game. And then, Krejci has a better 3-point shooting game because he's been a big part of sometimes why the Hawks are able to win and lose, because sometimes he'll just go on that run where he'll make 3 or 4 straight threes in a row and boom, now he's, created separation or got the Hawks back into the game or something like that. And so I'm not too worried about Big Krejci. Just got to hope he bounce back next game. Kennard tonight, 8 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists. Like I've said in the last episode, big thing with Kennard is he's still going to play if Corey Kispert and CJ McCollum get into the rotation. I don't know if he is. I think he has played well enough since that player is only meeting to warrant minutes, but it really just depends on Quinn. And listen, I'm just glad that he has became a viable option for them. And he has really stepped up his game. And, obviously people have talked about the Hawks moving on from him. If they're off Anthony Davis now, how does that impact Kristaps and Luke? They're still expiring, so they still have value. But are the Hawks like, we got to get off of them with every fiber of our being? Or is there a point where if we just can't find a good deal, Luke Kennard will be around and he may not play as much at the end of the year, but is a guy who, we have a guy who's injured. We know we have another sharpshooter ready to go. Mo Gay, again, we know. Okay, I'll say this. So this wasn't the greatest Mo game tonight. He had the lowest, like plus minus, not minus 12 on the field. Didn't score 0.2 rebounds. Listen, the thing about Mo Gay is we talked about Mo Gay is an adventure. Sometimes he'll just have those games where you could see his impact defensively, and then if he can give you some offense on top of that, it's like, okay, he's really changing the trajectory of this game, but he also still has that point in his career where he just sometimes he doesn't give you a lot. But sometimes I even say just him being out there is big for this team. So, I'm not really, again, too worried about Mo Gay moving forward because you know what he is. Keaton Wallace got some run tonight, 17 minutes, 10 points. Obviously, with Trae out and things of that nature, created an opportunity for him to come in and play. Zach out and Porzingis out. And he played well. 4, 6, 2, and 3 from 3. Listen, Keaton Wallace is, I think they say Keaton's shooting over 40% from 3 this year. Like, listen, he's not somebody you want as your primary ball handler, but he's not been bad. Like, in terms of like shooting, like he's been fine. Like in terms of what Quinn wants with that, he's been fine. Not an issue at all. And then Asa Newell, 9 points, 4 rebounds, gave some good energy tonight. 1 block, 20, had the highest plus minus off the bench with plus 20. So, and he continues to really be really good for the Hawks in some of the minutes that he plays. And like I said, really good matchup without them having a Joker or a Valanciunas for him to get run. And he played really well. So, we'll have to see how he continues to grow through his rookie year. He just became someone who Quinn can trust to play if he needs to. So that was the recap of that game. Player performances, Hawks get a good win. So obviously this shifts to the next topic. So CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, the trade was made official on Friday, and CJ and Corey were able to get to Atlanta. So they were not with the team. They were out because they weren't with the team. The assumption is, I would assume they're going to fly to Denver Saturday. Not Denver. They're going to fly to Golden State Saturday. I would think. I don't know. I can say I don't know what the process is for them to get into the lineup. And so on and so forth. And they may play on Sunday against Golden State with them. So we'll have to see. But I wanted to talk about their fits real quick. Just about, what I expect from both of those guys when they get into on the floor for the Hawks. And let's talk about CJ McCollum. So one of the big issues when Trae's been out at times is, do the Hawks have enough offense? Jalen can give you, because there have been games where Jalen and Nikhil both give you 30 and they still don't have enough offense. Essentially, if you look at both stat lines this year, Trae's averaging 19-ish points a game? McCollum's averaging 19 points a game. They're essentially averaging the same this year. So CJ, I feel like, CJ McCollum's an interesting player because I feel like some people look at CJ and think, oh, CJ McCollum, like, he's not that great. He's washed up. He's da 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 da. That boy CJ averaging 19 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists this year. And he will help fill in that scoring gap, that third score, as you say, for this team. And listen, he just lit up the Atlanta Hawks earlier this year with 40 points. So I think overall, I think CJ fits seamlessly with the offense. He even mentioned that when he talked about coming to Atlanta. He mentioned that he has played in this offense before and that he's comfortable. And so he seems like he may be a bit of a flawless insert offensively for them. Obviously, defensively, that's not a strength of his. We'll have to see how the Hawks navigate that. But overall, I think CJ has a really good chance to really just it's kind of the Karis LeVert situation from last year. Karis LeVert, we know what he is. Sometimes this brother can shoot you out of a game, but sometimes he can just keep you in a game or help you win a game because he can go 30. He can go nuclear. CJ is the same thing. He can basically do the same thing. He can play make a little bit. I think he will essentially be the second unit point guard, quote unquote, when he comes into the game. And like I said, he just helps provide scoring to that second unit because that's also been something I've talked about. Now that Nikhil's in the starting lineup, who's going to be that guy off the bench to put the ball in the basket? Because we don't know if Kristaps Porzingis is going to stay in that bench role. So having a bench where you have CJ McCollum and then, like a Kristaps Porzingis and some shooters on the floor, I think it really allows the Hawks to play the way they want to. But at the same time, CJ can still kind of do what he did in Washington. Like I said, have those big nights, still can put the ball in the basket. He's still a really good shooter at this point in his career and can really provide, like I said, much needed offense for the Hawks. And so I'm really excited to kind of see how he integrates himself offensively. So I think that's going to help because, like I said, there's going to be nights where Nikhil's off or Jalen's off and you need someone else to put the ball in the basket, and that could be CJ. That's where CJ comes in. And I would not be shocked, and this may be controversial to some of you, if he finishes games. Because Quinn loves him some offense. And so if Zach is having a game where he's giving you 6 points and CJ got like 16, CJ's finishing that game. I know about the defensive liability, but Quinn's looking at, brother, we need everybody to be a threat on the floor offensively. And if CJ is a threat that game, then CJ deserves to finish that game. So he's a guy who's going to play a big role, kind of lead the second unit, be a scorer, play make, shoot, just everything that Quinn would want. And I'm excited to kind of see him get integrated and kind of, still an expiring deal, give the Hawks something that, could help them. Plus a veteran guy. He was a veteran in Washington, helping the young guys. Now he's a veteran in Atlanta. He's going to continue to help the young guys. So really curious to see how CJ McCollum integrates himself. But then we look at Corey Kispert. So Corey Kispert is essentially what some people are looking at as Luke Kennard's replacement. Young, 6'6", 6'7", shooter, and everything, right? So, again, you would think it's a flawless fit. He's a really good cutter. He's really good off screens. He's really good at just knowing how to navigate and try to get good looks for himself to hit threes. I think he'll be a really good sharpshooter for Quinn. And, again, he'll probably be part of that second unit. So, again, your second unit, you're having Corey Kispert, CJ McCollum, Kristaps Porzingis. You now feel like you have some offensive firepower in that second unit. And I think Corey will be a big part of that as well. And now also, I'm sure that like when we've seen those Luke Kennard, Vic Krejci lineups, now may turn into Corey Kispert and Vic Krejci lineups. Where now, again, you have two dangerous shooters that defenses have to worry about. It provides spacing now. So if you have a guy like Nikhil or a Dyson in the game, they can attack the paint. They can go after it because you have to respect both of those shooters. And then, Jalen spacing maybe creates a play opportunity to cut, like I said, get a backdoor dunk or whatever. So I think Corey Kispert as well, I think he'll be a very valuable part of this team. I know some people said he's not great defensively, but I know also people said he's a little bit better than Luke defensively. So I don't know what that really means until he gets out on the floor, because that's always the biggest thing when you bring in guys that you trade for is it's not the offense a lot of the time that you worry about, it's the defense, because That's chemistry. That's reps. That's, just doing it with the teammates. So they're going to have to integrate themselves in that regard. But overall, I think, like I said, it fits what Atlanta wants to do. It fits what Quinn wants to do. And I'm excited to see both of them kind of get into the game and kind of do their thing. So we'll see, like I said, we'll see if they play against Golden State on Sunday. And then lastly, before we go, I want to talk about Anthony Davis. So there was about a couple of nights ago, Anthony Davis injured his finger. Obviously, there's been talk about the Hawks looking at Anthony Davis as a prime trade suspect by Shams. A lot of Hawks fans have been very against it from what I've seen because of the contract and his injury history. And the fact that he also wants an extension. And so, people have been kind of nervous. Like, are the Hawks really about to go all in on Anthony Davis? Well, Anthony Davis, we learned what his injury was. He has a ligament injury, and he will probably be out for a minute. Especially if they say if he gets surgery, he'll be out for months. And so, essentially, a lot of people now believe Anthony Davis's trade window is over. Like, no one's going to trade for Anthony Davis because he can't play for you. And there's a chance, depending on the team you are, he may not play for you this season. And so I think a lot of people in the Hawks have kind of breathed a sigh of relief because they're like, oh, thank God we don't have to go after Anthony Davis. Listen, you kind of get the vision. You get this super athletic front court, right? But I think, like I said, people just feel like Anthony Davis, 32, injury prone, a lot of money. I don't know about that, Chief. So another name that's kind of popped up because they've had their struggles this season has been Zubac from the Clippers. He is a guy who a couple people have kind of mentioned as like a preference over Anthony Davis. Like I said, the Clippers have not been great this year. They might sell at the deadline. That might be somewhere the Hawks can go with this. He would be someone that I would like as well. I think he would fit well with what we do. Obviously, he's not. I know for them, they like a good stretch five and all that good stuff. But overall, I think that he would be a good fit. 7-footer, a guy who's a little bit bigger. He can bang with some of the bigger bigs in the league and everything like that. So he would be good. Maybe you look at a Nick Claxton as well. Maybe Dallas shifts their focus. Instead of trading Anthony Davis, they try to trade Daniel Gafford. Those are some other names as well that I think the Hawks could look into potentially if they really do want to try to acquire a big for Kristaps Porzingis, because you would essentially assume with the illness and his inconsistency of being on the court, the Hawks probably want to move off of him and maybe try to find a guy they can keep for years to come at the big man position. And so those would be some names, but I do think that the Anthony Davis pursuit is over. I think the Hawks are not going to go in that direction, but we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what rumors, what things people say in the trade world as we get closer to the deadline about the Hawks and their activity. When acquiring a big, and we'll see if maybe some of the names I've mentioned pop up. So we'll have to, keep an eye on that. But I think overall, I think that's about it for this episode. I appreciate you guys tuning in for another Believe in Hawks. If you enjoyed it, like I said, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment down below. All my audio listeners, I appreciate y'all. Go ahead, leave 5 stars on the podcast. Tell your friend about Believe in Hawks. And then also follow me on Twitter at Bricey_2K as well. And like I said, good night tonight. Hawks beat the Denver Nuggets for the first time since 2019 in Denver. They soared mile high. Dyson Daniels, first career triple-double. Jalen Johnson, 29 points. The guys did what they needed to do tonight. Let's see if they can get another win and get another winning streak going and kind of get themselves back in, like I said, the mix of things in Eastern Conference. They were only 3.5 games out of 6th place before the game. So Hawks get a winning streak going. This season is not anywhere close to over. So we'll definitely keep an eye on. I think the next game, if I remember correctly, this next game the Hawks are playing. That is actually not what I need. I need the schedule. 8:30. So I believe that's Eastern. So Hawks play at 8:30 Eastern. Okay. So they'll play earlier than tonight, but still. Doing our thing. So I appreciate you guys tuning in for another Believe in Hawks. See you next time.